Marty up north, welcome back from your trip. It looks like
Yeah.
you've got a junior beard happening. It looks like, is it coming back?
Yeah, it's coming back. You can't help it. There's no razors out there. Didn't bring one. I go
No,
out
I
there
mean, are you
this.
gonna keep it, or are you gonna go bald again? What's the deal?
I'm definitely going to keep it for the conference this weekend in Victoria. You know what? People don't recognize me, and it was frustrating. So I want to be recognized again. So I'm growing my beard, and then maybe I'll shave it after the conference. Yeah, yeah.
So, what did you miss most of all while you were away from civilization, away from the political game, and all of that while you were away?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. First of all, I do escape to re-energize. We all have our ways of re-energizing, and that for me is how I re-energize. Did I miss anything? No, I didn't miss anything. Not even the food. Usually when I'm gone, I eat like terribly, and we talk about like what's the first thing you're going to eat when you get back. But this trip, I was out there with a chef. I have a buddy who's a chef at a winery in British Columbia, and he came with us, and he fed us like kings because we're on canoes, right? So when you're on a canoe, you can carry like a lot of weight. So we had like 50 pounds of food in each canoe for four guys. So think about how well we were eating. No, I didn't miss anything. And one of the funny things is like it's a very famous circuit is Barron Lakes up in northern BC, and you do see other paddlers once in a while, right? And so it's a funny question. You stop and you chat, and my question was always like, hey, how's things back in the world? Is Trudeau still in power? Like I always ask that question, and then they're like, yeah. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to stay out here a little bit longer. I wish I could. I wish I could. And then I come back here, and then I take a day to decompress, and I get on the internet, and then I remember everything. As soon as I get back here within a day, I realize Canada's a gong show. And then,
All that stress is right back.
it
It's like it never left.
yeah, 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 yeah. In fact, I think I made a comment about it. The first video that I watched when I logged on Saturday morning was Jagmeet Singh being interviewed, and I think you have that clip queued up, and play it, and you'll see why my blood. Actually, my blood was boiling, but so's the interviewer asking the questions. Let's play it.
That's actually refreshing to hear that actually the interviewers are getting just as fed up as the average Canadian on this.
Our democracy is at stake here. So why are you continue to prop them up?
So the question is, what are we going to do about it?
No,
The question
is,
to
why do
me,
you continue to prop up the government when you say our democracy is at stake and this government is not taking our democracy seriously? Why continue to back them up?
we're not at all doing that. What we're saying is we're going to demand answers. We're going to continue
That's exactly
to
what
push
he's
for
doing.
solutions. Because we're in Parliament right now, I was able to read these documents. Because we're in Parliament now, we've been able to push for a letter to have the public inquiry also include the Conservative leadership race in a part of the public inquiry's work. We want to use the tools as parliamentarians, as a parliamentarian myself, to use the tools that we have, that I have, to advance democracy. I want to use the tools that I have to get to the bottom of this. The suggestion that an election is a solution to election interference is, I think, a fallacy. What we need to do is use the tools we have to get to the bottom of this. I want to continue to push for more solutions. I want to push for more transparency. I want to push to learn more so we can have better solutions.
This guy's a
So-
clown. Holy cow!
Yeah, I'd love to play it back, but look at what he said just at the beginning, right? Like she's mad. She's asking him a point question, like why are you, you're concerned about democracy? Why are you propping up the Liberals? And then he turns and he says, so the question is, and then he rewords it instantly. And finally, she's like, no, that's not the question, because he's about to make it his own question. And then listen to the weird language.
It's why are you propping them up? Why are you propping them up? Well, the answer to a bad election isn't to go into another election. He says, well, perhaps we can pay attention to it a little more this time, and we can police any cases of interference that are happening at the
they've
time.
been making. Yeah, he's doing mental gymnastics. Like he said something along the lines of, well, we need to fix the democracy before we can't reveal who the list of who's been compromised, because that would be damaging to democracy. I'm like, wow, no, we like tell us who's been compromised. we'll figure out why they were compromised, and then he's trying to make it sound like, oh, we'll solve the problem, trust us, and then no. Like, and this is just one example. I mean, there's many examples this week. True. Oh, there's another great one. Yeah.
Here's another great example. I'll play this clip real quick here.
Is it tenable to just go on without names attached to some of these allegations? I mean, Jagmeet Singh has said that there's nobody in his caucus he needs to worry about. Can you say the same thing with comfort and clarity?
I hadn't known that Jagmeet said that. I would be wary of any party leader drawing any sort of conclusion like that.
Is it tenable to
like, can you, like, yeah.
What do you even say to that? He can't answer the question because he knows who these people are. And this is what's frustrating the most is they're saying now that Pierre Poilievre didn't join the committee, didn't sign in to find out the information. So he's being dangerous by inferring that, you know, there are traitors in our government or whatever. It was a gag order is what they did. They made this act, you know, the Information Act, so that they can all come in and join in and read all about it and then be gagged for the rest of their lives. This is the methodology that they have in this government. I mean, I said it before. There was something circulating of some man giving birth this week, and I think that's Trudeau's idea of transparent. Like that's what he thinks the word means. It has nothing to do with actually having a bit of transparency in our government and actually. You know, didn't he run on that? He ran on transparency, and he's probably the most shut door parliamentary government we've had.
I have a folder of, like, you know, little clips that I use so frequently, and that's one of my favorite ones. It's Trudeau in pre-election 2015 promising a more transparent government. I play that one all the time. But back to the gag order. Yeah, it's frustrating when people say things like, you know, Pierre. Some people think that Pierre doesn't have the security clearance for these bizarre reasons, like he's been compromised and he can't pass the security clearance. No. Pierre Poilievre is a member of the Privy Council of Her Majesty, and he has all the clearances necessary. You're right. Trudeau plays these additional games where he's like, I'll let you look at something only if you swear an additional, you know, agree to an additional, non-disclosure. And Pierre won't do that because he doesn't want to gag himself. When he wins the next election, he'll be able to say, hey, here's the documents and I'm sharing them. And so that's why he's playing that game. We might not find out who the 11 compromise are. Yeah. Well, it shouldn't actually. Well, and we shouldn't even play these games.
This is what's interesting about what Trudeau says here, because he says that it would be dangerous for him to say stuff like that. He's not saying that it's dangerous for Canada. He's saying it's dangerous for himself because he signed a document saying that he wouldn't say these things for the rest of his life. It's dangerous for him legally in this scenario. So it sounds more of like a threat to Jagmeet Singh than it does
lately, Trudeau's
him warning about dangers of Canada.
Excuse me. Yeah, Trudeau's so tired these days. He's constantly doing these little weird Freudian slips, right? Like, he had one in Ukraine this week. Like, not in Ukraine, but he had one at the G7 where he said something like, Ukraine will be held accountable. And again, like he meant to say Russia, but he says Ukraine, and it's one of those Freudian slips. It's like, my favorite one was the one a couple of weeks ago. Like, yeah, we've already started the fires, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, there you go. Yeah, you started the forest fires.
We already started. We began fire season. We kicked it off with the big bonfire.
And yeah, and this one, like you pointed out, I can't say that because that would be damaging to me. And that's when he comes out under stress. He comes out with the truth, which is he's worried about his own ass at this point. I mean, I couldn't find the poll specifically, but all over the internet, people are talking about that his party's in fourth, and I kind of believe it, right? You and I have talked about that. I mean, we're in terms of popular vote right now. The next election could conceivably have the Conservatives as a majority and the Bloc as a minority, or as the opposition. But now it sounds like even the NDP are passing Trudeau. I mean, he's sinking. Yeah, and actually this week will be another test for him because on coming Monday, there's an election in Toronto, St. Paul. There's a by-election, and the Liberals threw everything at that one. Like they threw money, they put a star candidate in there, and every MP, or not every MP, every minister is taking an excuse to go there. You know, Seamus, so Reagan from Newfoundland shows up in Toronto, Randy Boissonneau from Edmonton shows up. And that's another strategy,
right? You know, they're panicked. They're
totally
because
panicked.
They think they might lose that area. That's crazy too, because this is liberal Toronto. Maybe there's a possibility that they might lose that riding. That would be that'd be hilarious for me.
I looked at that one very closely. If they don't lose, it's because of Jagmeet. Jagmeet, do a better job, man. Send your he show up and help your candidate, because Jagmeet would be he is the kingmaker in that one too. If he runs hard, he'll split the vote, and if he lays back, then the Liberals will win. So we'll see. It's going to be actually. Let's keep talking about that one. The other interesting thing about that riding is Max Bernier didn't choose to run in it, right? So Max. It's typical in a single by-election like that for for a new leader to be allowed to run and sort of given the chance. And Max is only running a pretty minor candidate. And then the other news broke about Max this week. We found out that through his wife, he bought a house in Florida. So now people are starting to question the PPC's real.
Is he done? Is he done?
I think he's done.
So, well, doesn't he usually only run to split the Conservative vote? He's not out there to split the Liberal vote.
Yeah, well, and all those things are coming out, right? So this week kind of shows that Max is perhaps done, and the PPC is probably on its last legs. So
I know the comments are going to hammer me for that last comment, but it's just the way things are going.
Hey, we're just the news. We're just reporting the news, folks. That's all we're doing.
And speaking of which, this is something that we do, and we actually, because of what we do here, we got invited to a big conference that's happening this coming weekend, which I'm pretty excited about, and I think everybody should be excited about this. There's a huge lineup here, and this is the Reclaiming Canada Conference, June 21st through 23rd, and this is in Victoria, British Columbia. And Marty and myself will both be there. We're on the roster. Hey, check us out on the roster here. There's a lot of great speakers that'll be showing up. It's a three-day event. It's going to be pretty off the chains. And don't worry, if you can't be there, there's also virtual tickets that you can purchase to watch the event and watch it live streaming. So it should be really good.
I'm getting totally excited about this event, but I'll just put it out there for people. It's a small conference. This is a kind of event where I wish there were more of these, because if you come, you'll actually get to chat with the people that are on stage. You know what I mean? Like, there's lots of events where the people are on stage are like distant and you can't get close to them. Like for you and I, when we went and saw Tucker Carlson, right? Like, it's kind of hard to get close. Huge. You know, you got to pay big bucks to go see Tucker. I'm not comparing myself to Tucker in any way, shape, or form. The guy's amazing. But this is a kind of conference where, come there and it's going to be pretty casual, and people are going to have some great conversation. Solutions, right? We're not just talking. That's the other thing that we're trying to make different about this conference. We're not just talking. We want to get people, engaged in real solutions to retake control of the country. For you and I, our topic is about what we do now, right? We're going to talk about the media. How do we get, well, I think the media is doomed. I think the real mainstream media is doomed. I think it's us, man. It's us.
I think we're the mainstream anymore. This is the direction. This is where it's going. This is where people are paying attention anymore.
Yeah, and the other topic for us related to that is censorship, right? It's all like they're trying to censor us, and we're going to talk about that and the solutions we have.
Well, I think the best part about this whole thing is the conference main talking point. The whole main theme of this year is misinformation in media, misinformation, disinformation, stuff that's lies that are being told. And here we are, we're invited because we're media analysts. We look at what the media is saying, and then we say, hey, look at all the BS that's out there, and we try to set the record straight for people. This is the concept. And in trying to shut this event down, a bunch of lefties turned it into an event about transphobia, about trans stuff and LGBT and all of this stuff. A story ran on the CBC trying to shut the event down, saying that it was about anti-soji and all this other stuff, which it wasn't. So right there is, I mean, I don't even think they see the irony in it when they're railing against a conference that's talking about misinformation in media, and in order to cancel it, they misinform you about the conference.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Was it you who did the clip with the you had the thumbnail of the guy with the irony on his face? Was that you, or was that somebody else?
Yeah, that was me.
I missed your videos last week, but I was going through them and I saw what you did. I saw the thumbnails of your video. That was you. Okay, so that was the topic of that one, right? Irony? Was that what it was?
The irony
of trying to cancel a conference on information and misinformation. Yeah, that's awesome. God, they almost succeeded though. They almost succeeded because the organizers of this conference felt a little pressure and were convinced to go to a smaller venue, which is. But again, they fail to understand technology, right? I'll give you another example. I went to a conference yesterday, not a conference, an event. It pretty much started out as a town hall event put on by one of the local conservative constituency associations here in Calgary. And the title of the topic of the event was an injection of truth. And it's a bit of play on words. And they brought in doctors to talk about the COVID vaccine or COVID in general. And I don't want to get into details because, again, I don't want to risk you getting canceled or this show getting canceled today. But people tried to cancel it. And the more they tried to cancel it, the bigger it got. And at the end of the day, these organizers had to get a bigger venue. So there was 500 people live. And then it got streamed to 291 showings. So 291 other organizations, little halls, little groups got together and streamed a version of it in their little meeting rooms all the way to the UK, all the way to New York. So these groups that are trying to cancel it, yeah, it was completely amazing. And in the end, we were looking at the numbers, and this small event in Calgary was viewed live by 15,000 people. And I don't know how many people are going to view it by rewatching it. But back to, so yeah, I understand why
it's called the Streisand effect. You hear about the meaning behind this? So for people who don't know, the Streisand effect was this idea that Barbara Streisand had her mansion shown on TV one day. And she was all upset about it. Don't show my house. People will find out where I live. And her going after the TV company for showing it actually led to way more people learning about where she lived. And it's been known as the Streisand effect ever since. And so you can thank her for this whole concept. The We Unify event, I'm not sure it's in a smaller venue. I know that there was like another
smaller room in a big venue, right? It's at the convention center in Victoria, but they didn't give them the 5,000 person auditorium because they limited them. They didn't cancel them, but they put a bit of a chokehold on them because they must have gotten a sense that this was growing because it's sold out. The live version is sold out, and I'm convinced that if the Victoria Chamber of Commerce had let them have the 5,000 person room, that we would have sold out the 5,000 or come close, right? So we would have.
So it's about 1,500 people. I think
they put a limit onto the size that we can make it, or that the organizers can make it. They put a limit, and so then it forced this group to go the technology way, and they're selling some streaming, and now there's going to be 5,000 people will stream it. So yeah, you can't cancel the truth. What's the expression? The truth doesn't need to be protected. It just is like a lion. You let
the truth is like a lion.
Yeah, absolutely. It protects itself.
Yeah, you let it loose, and that's the way you go with it. That's perfect. And this is the whole idea. And a lot of the truth is coming out. I mean, didn't you just have a cold snap in June? I mean, people are kind of figuring out.
No, I went out and covered the strawberries, or not the strawberries, the tomatoes yesterday. We had a frost warning. Absolutely. And again, these are the things you and I point out all the time. I mean, look at it's getting even more comical. Like the CTV with their maps, they can't even get their colors right. Like they're so hell bent on putting some red and some yellow somewhere that they get it wrong, right? So yesterday they put out a map and it showed like Alberta as I don't know, whatever, 10 degrees, and it was in green. And then it had Ontario, Toronto at 20 degrees and scorching red. But you guys were 20 degrees yesterday, and you still ended up being green. So, you know, it's like, pick the, like, if you're going to pick colors, at least be consistent. But there was no rhyme or reason to the color. Somebody just put a lot of red over Ontario so that they can claim that there's a heat dome. Or whatever they want to call it nowadays.
But there's a heat dome, and then there's like snow happening in Alberta in June. Yeah, it's crazy.
And then you guys have atmospheric rivers, so yeah. And that whole thing, and talking about climate change and collapsing narratives, like I'm sure you've heard of what's happening in Calgary, right? That was the other big news. So when I left Calgary, we'd had a water line main break, and so I go on my trip, and I thought when I come back, everything would be normal. It's been 11, 12 days. And now so the city that was screaming about drought a month ago had no drought. So now they created a drought. I'm sure they didn't do it on purpose, but there is no drought. The reservoirs are full, but now the reservoirs are full and we can't empty the reservoirs because the main line is broken. And it's been 11 days and they declared an emergency. And that's no joke, because like it's got people stressed out in Calgary again, going, here we go again, right? Like it's putting Stampede at risk. Some businesses are already being told, oh my God, like what a fiasco.
And Jody Gondek gets up in front of everybody. And what was this clip? I'm not going to play the clip, but I'll just show what it's just like so comical the way it looks here. When you get it, Jody Gondek gets up in front of everybody in a flannel shirt and tells everybody, drink beer instead of water. I guess she's trying to be funny, but at the same time, with such a terrible mismanagement of what's going on in the situation there. I mean, the pipes are what happened there. The pipes they collapsed, or they burst because of just mismanagement, or
it's old technology.
I mean, obviously that would take years, but.
No, it's old technology. So that's there's a dam on one of the rivers. On the Bow River is dammed, and then from there there's a main 72-inch concrete line. Remember in the good old days, they used to it was concrete lines for sewers and for water. And one of these water mains just gave up. It punched a hole, and they knew about it. That's the other thing. They knew about it because they monitor leakage very closely. They know how much water comes out of the reservoir, and then they know how much is consumed by the residences. And then the imbalance was about 28%. So people are like, you're leaking water all over the place. It ain't getting in there. And I'm glad. It brings up a point. These failures. I'm glad that there's some of these failures now, as uncomfortable as they are. It is highlighting that the politicians aren't doing their jobs. And I've been making fun of Calgarians. I was going to have a shower party on my lawn and just make a video with all our neighbors and have a big shower, because they're limited to 3-minute showers. But I keep poking at them. I'm going, keep voting for these woke idiots, because Mayor Gondek, she got elected. The first thing she did when she got elected is she declared a climate emergency, and she estimated she was going to need $84 billion to fight climate, and she wanted to wean Calgary off oil and gas. And then she did bike lanes, and she did drag queen story time at the library, and she did rainbow colored sidewalks, and she did pride parades and all of that. And meanwhile, the shit that she's supposed to do, you don't have water. So I'm rubbing it in Calgarians' face right now. Keep voting for these idiots. Enjoy your sidewalks, your bike lanes in winter, while you stink because you can't have a shower. Like I'm fine by that. That's what's happening, right? This is what happens, folks. I mean, Jody Gondek is worried about. She's not the only one, right? It happens in every city. Like. They have their agendas. They're not playing in their lanes, and they're worried about things that have nothing to do with their jurisdiction. It's not up to the city to worry about equal rights or equality of sexes. That's a federal matter, or well, it's not even a matter anyway. It's not like we have.
Well, it's their job to take care of infrastructure, and when they want to take on all of these other things, and they can't even take care of their basic necessity, this infrastructure of a town. And then they want to say, hey, come on, we want to get you in a tighter area. We want you in these 15-minute cities where you rely more on us. Like, are you kidding me? You're absolutely failing at the basic tasks that you were assigned, and you want to take on more stuff and you want to make us more reliant on you. Forget it. In fact, I'm out here in British Columbia drinking beer instead of water on your behalf.
Karen, get me a beer, please, honey. Let me tell you another quick personal story, right? I mean, about these insanities, and I'm glad, like, my kids I'm rubbing off on my kids, which is fantastic. My daughter works as a hairstylist in Calgary. And now her business is borderline affected. Like, they're at the point where they're going to conserve water, and her business depends on water. And she said, like, if they shut me down again, like, I'm done. I'm like, yeah, I don't blame you. And then she got into a bit of an argument with somebody at work because at work, they're suddenly, they were saying, oh, conserve water, blah, blah, blah. And my daughter went and emptied the sink. She's like, I'm not doing my dishes in this dirty water. And then they got into it tough. And she pointed out to the other lady, she's like, a year ago, you were freaking out over over sanitary conditions. A year ago, you made people wear masks. You wouldn't let them into the shop without wearing a mask. You made them wash their hands 43 times a day, blah, blah, blah. So you bought their narrative. She's being mean to this other lady. She's like, you bought the complete narrative of COVID and you went sanitary overboard. And now, without thinking, you're buying their new narrative and you're conserving water. And now you're doing your dishes in dirty water. So when my daughter told me that story,
being completely insanitary. That's crazy.
I'm like, thank you. I'm rubbing off on my kids, and they're noticing this kind of insanity. And she stood her ground. She like emptied the drain, she refilled it, she did her dishes, and then she went on to her business. And I applaud her for that. They're trying to do this to us all day long, man. They keep trying to brainwash us, and that's what you and I are doing, right? We got to get people to pay attention to some of this language. Yeah.
Well, it's like that. I can't remember the name of the experiment, but there was an experiment where. Now you really want that beer. So there's an experiment where they had a bunch of people come in and they would answer questions out loud. How many or how long are these lines? Or what? They have a line and they say, "Is this the same length as this line, or this line?" Yeah. And most of them were actors except one person who was the actual subject of the matter, and every so often they would answer incorrectly on purpose, and just to see if the person would go along with it or if they wouldn't go along with it. And it turns out about 10% of the test subjects would just say, no, I know what I'm seeing, I'm gonna go along with that. But 90% of them went along with it. And then the same people that would go along with the wrong answers just to get along with the rest of the group.
Yeah.
They if they had another person in there that agreed with them, they would be more adept to, or more inclined to answer correctly instead of just going with the group. So we're that 10%. We're the ones that need to be vocal. We need to get out there and tell people, no, you're hearing BS. Don't just go along with the group. Trust your instinct. Trust your intellect. You're looking at it. You're seeing the truth. Have a gander at that. And we need to be the ones to encourage those other people to not just step in line, because it's dangerous. We've all seen what happens when people just step in line.
Yeah, and I love what we do, and I'll keep. And actually, we are making a difference. I trust me. I'm sure you experience it all the time. I mean, I went to this conference yesterday, and I got people come up to me, and there were doctors at this conference yesterday, and one of the doctors came to me. All of them followed me. I was like, wow, they follow me. And one of them came to me and shook my hand. He's like, man, you get this stuff, and thank you. Like, they use us as a voice to amplify some of their findings. So yeah, that's all I ask for. That's all I want people to do. Question everything. Question me. In fact, I even say that. Question me. My kids do that too often.
Absolutely.
Now. I'm like, okay, you're taking this one too much to heart. Dad's telling you something. Believe that.
Well, what we should be questioning is things like when they make a prediction, or say they're measuring something, but they keep changing the ruler. This is what we question. Now, recently we got news about the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, which is the thing that we use to measure inflation. Now, inflation is...
it's not inflation. It's what we measure inflation with. You're right.
Exactly. Inflation is actually the increase of the monetary supply. That is inflation. The effects of inflation are prices going up. So what they do to measure this is they have a basket of goods, supposed to be a set basket of goods that they measure. But what they've been doing is they keep changing what goods are in the basket and how much of them, percentage of them that they actually measure. And this is what's been happening this week. And it's insane to me. It's insane to me that they'll manipulate the data like this so obviously, and people just don't. The tickety boo.
They should manipulate it. I've had so the adjustment occurred today. We'll get back to the adjustment. Some people say they should never adjust it. That's going a little bit too far. I mean, there should be the odd adjustment. I'll give you an example. I mean, personal telephones, personal computers came around, let's say 30 years ago. And that wasn't sort of a category at the time, and other things, and whatever, horse buggies, extreme examples disappear. So when there's changes in technology, yeah, you need an adjustment. A modern recent change in technology is, shopping from home has changed things. So once in a while, there's enough of a change, you should make an adjustment. To adjust midway like this, like it's been a year since the last adjustment, and they're adjusting right now. They're giving a higher weighting to food and shelter because that's the only things we're spending on, and they're giving a lower weighting to other things because we're not spending on those things. It's kind of bullshit. But on the flip side, by my estimate, when I looked at the adjustments today, inflation is going to go up because they're actually they're increasing significant. I mean, the basket is like skewed right now. The basket doesn't even look like a basket. If I had to hold a basket, it's all crooked. I think it's 29% of the basket of inflation is shelter, which is huge, and they're using inflation as they're using these tools for political purposes, and they're forgetting that we need these tools to actually properly monitor how things are going. And that's why I don't give a shit what the tool. I don't care that it says 2% or 8% or 2.3% inflation. We just need to know what it is so we can adjust. And when I see them adjusting constantly and using it for political gains, then I realize, oh man, we're in deep, deep trouble, because they're not interested in the facts.
Yeah, they're mucking with the system to look better. And that's really all it is. No politician wants, a crash to happen on their watch. No politician wants, prices to go up on their watch. But if they can go to the public and they can say, check it out, inflation is below our target range for good inflation, then that's that. I mean, what's a good inflation? If you're a sound money guy like myself, I'd rather have sound money. Then no inflation would be great, or even deflation might be good. Now, there's economists out there that say, well, if you have deflation, then people won't buy products and they'll just hold off, and that's bull crap. It really is, because look at the personal computers, cell phones, all of these items. They've been massively deflationary for decades, and nobody's waiting and holding off to get a new device, because there's always going to be a new device. So they're always going out there.
And you're absolutely correct. I mean, not everybody is at the same time in their life and at the same age and in the same circumstances. To be honest, I'm handling inflation okay because I'm retired and I have fixed investments. So yeah, when it's 5% inflation, I can find a way to benefit out of 5% inflation. But let's talk a bit about let's talk about one of the things that's been, and I think you have that story queued up because we talked about it before the show. Inflation is still roaring its ugly head, right? And last month or a couple of weeks ago, the Bank of Canada dropped that, the interest rate by 0.25%, and you and I said it, bad direction, shouldn't be going that way. It's the Bank of Canada succumbed to some political pressure, dropped the interest rate to 4.75, and now 2-3 weeks later, we're seeing the impact already. The Canadian dollar exchange rate is just on its way down, and it's tanking. And these are things we warned about.
The predictions are bad. The predictions
and
are real bad. Here we
yeah.
have it. The Canadian dollar could sink to 50 cents a decade from now. 50 cents as opposed to the American dollar. Watch Jean-Francois. Anyway, this guy, I can never pronounce these French names. Investment guy. He explains why what could drive the loonie to those depths. Well, it's our economy. It's our economy and what they call slow growth. Real GDP per capita is in massive decline. We're, by those measures, we are in a recession. They don't want to say that we're in a recession. Oh no, they want to boast the happy numbers. Again, it's manipulation. We're not getting the real data.
Yeah, and we're fooling ourselves, right, Clyde? Right? Like, I mean, if you ask a world citizen somewhere, like, what's Canada known for? I'm pretty sure most of the world is going to say, they'll think about it for a few minutes. They'll go, beautiful scenery, lumber, mining, coal, oil. Bingo. They're not, if you ask somebody around the world, they won't say we're known for cars. We're not known for building cars. We're not known for building planes. We're not known for innovating cell phones or any of that stuff. We're known as a country that produces a shit ton of natural resources. And we're delusional when we fail to recognize that. For the last decade, we've gone down this weird path of like, oh no, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. We're not going to produce oil. We're not going to produce lumber. Well, what are we going to do? They keep talking about we're going to transition to something else. We're going to transition to what everybody else.
They're going to make car batteries. They say they're going to make car batteries.
No,
That's what
let somebody else
wants.
make car batteries. Let somebody else make cheap T-shirts. Let somebody else make socks. Let somebody else make whatever, and we'll continue to make oil, wood, wheat, raw foods, raw materials, raw minerals, and then we'll stay productive. Like everything we've done in the last decade, it's all predictable. We've somehow ourselves, it's like we became ashamed of the fact that we sit on the world's largest oil reserves and on the world's largest.
Well, there's
forest.
a certain group of Canadians that's ashamed of that. If you left it alone, if the government were to just laissez-faire and just back off, go away, what would happen? Industry would ramp up immediately. There is so much opportunity there. People would jump in. People are happy to work. They're excited to go to work. They're excited to do these things. But do you think that the world's gonna, world investors are gonna say, hey, you know what? Canada looks like a great place to make car batteries. No, this is what happens when you have a central authority, central planners. They malinvest resources, and that's all they've been doing is malinvesting our tax dollars into making make factories that are going to employ 1,000 people that costs us $15 billion. It's really ridiculous. There's no return on investment.
To make a product to compete against the Chinese or the Mexicans or the Brazilians and lose the battle. Yeah. And so we fooled ourselves. We're going down this nasty path. We're non-productive. We're not exploiting our resources. We keep giving ourselves this outrageous lifestyle, which requires our government to keep borrowing and borrowing and borrowing and taxing and taxing and taxing. And we saw it this week, right? I mean, the government, they've taxed us to death, right? They're at the 50% tax rate. They can't go any higher. And now there's pushback. And all the experts are telling them, you can't keep taxing us. If you go after capital gains, you're going after innovation. They keep saying we're going to tax Trudeau this week used like very, very Marxist language. Like he literally said, we're going to ask rich Canadians to take a little bit less profit. Well, you're one step away from no profit, which is what he wants, and maximum taxation. And I'm going to do this at some point. I have to go dig the information because the government keeps increasing the tax rate, and I'm sure the government's collecting less money from us. They're collecting less money because we're overtaxed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I brought this up many times, but I don't think people understand this very well. And it's called the Laffer curve. Now, if you look at taxation in Canada and you look on graphs and you see charts everywhere, I see them on Twitter today, people boasting, Canada pays, on average 55% tax. And then they put all these other nations above Canada somehow, like Japan. I'll tell you first and foremost, you're keeping a lot more of your income if you live in Japan than in Canada. In Canada, yeah, you might pay in income taxes at the end of the day, an average 55%. But when you've paid your alcohol tax and you paid your gas tax, the carbon tax, you've paid your capital gains tax, you've paid all of these other hidden taxes, you paid your CPP contributions, you paid your unemployment
your
registration
fees for your license, well. They're all taxes. Yeah.
Everything across the way, we're in excess of over 65% of our incomes are going towards taxation. Think of that. That means that tax freedom day is well past June. We're going into July and August before you hit tax freedom day, which essentially tax freedom day is the day you've worked every day up until that day to pay your taxes, and then you get to keep your money after that day.
We should find the Laffer curve. Do you have a Laffer curve?
Yes. So I was going to say that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I don't have a picture of it. It's a pretty simple bell curve. It's a bell curve, but the idea behind it is that if you tax the citizenry, yeah, they're not going to enjoy it. It's not great. Nobody likes paying taxes, but this is something that every civilization does. And if you tax them at a marginal low rate, you end up with a tremendous amount of tax revenue brought into the coffers of the government. If you increase the tax, it gets to a certain point where it becomes more economical to dodge taxes than it is to pay your taxes. And for a myriad of different ways that people can do it.
I'll add one thing to what you
taxes,
said.
Move their businesses.
Yeah. I'll add one thing to what you said. People don't like paying taxes, but they'll accept it if they're getting something in return. So generally speaking, the average Joe can
tolerate it. Yeah,
they'll tolerate it. But yes, to your point, at 50%, that tends to be that's Laffer, right? Laffer was an economist, and I think he started to really show statistically with evidence that at 50% tax, people start saying it ain't, no matter what, it ain't worth it. The 51 is where I go underground. At that point, I fold my business. I take more cash. I witnessed it this weekend. I actually went when I went canoeing, and I went and rented the canoes. The lady was pretty blunt about it. She's like, whatever, it's $250 to rent the canoes cash. If you have to put on this credit card, it's $350. Well, guess what Marty does? Marty's like pulls out the cash and pays $250 and we go underground temporarily. But that's what Laffer predicts, right? At that point, I'll carry more cash. But now what the government's trying to do to us when it comes to cash, right? They don't want us to have cash because
digital currencies so that you can't get away from it. And this is the thing. Now, there's two bad things there. So you have the, your general population, your middle class people who can't avoid it. They'll go into the digital currency, and then they'll have to pay these taxes. Even you go to, they want to tax you going to a garage sale. Essentially, they want to be able to tax every single thing. But people who are wealthy, and especially people who are making a majority of their money from capital gains, which they want to raise to 67%, which is well beyond the Laffer curve. What it does, a lot of people that are making that money, like say for example doctors, they'll incorporate everything, and then they make their money on dividends or on capital gains, and that's how they pay themselves. You're gonna now tax them. They made corporations to avoid all the heavy taxes, and now you're adding these heavy taxes again. What's the result? Most of them are going to move. Most of them are going to pick up and take their practices elsewhere. Where they're not actually,
again, let me just they didn't make corporation. The doctors didn't make a corporation. The governments in the good old days, intelligent governments understood that corporations are necessary, and gave corporations certain breaks because a corporation, like it wasn't Trudeau thinks that people set up a corporation to avoid taxes. No, corporations exist, and governments give corporations sort of certain tax advantages to promote corporations. We want people to innovate. We want people to set up. Old governments used to recognize that setting up a business meant taking a risk, and so we eased some of that risk. Fucking Trudeau, sorry for swearing, he He doesn't want corporations. He doesn't want capitalists. He doesn't want innovation. Like the way what that's why I say when he's not taxing the rich, he's taxing innovators, and he has absolutely no understanding of, like, he honestly thinks that a corporation is a way to avoid taxes. No, in fact, they're deferred. And if you do it well, a good corporation will make you a ton of money and pay a ton of taxes in the end. You know what I mean? Like, it's like when they go after when they go after Loblaws. My God, look at Loblaws' tax bill. Like, they paid $1 billion in taxes. So why would you no, yeah, Trudeau doesn't understand any of that. Actually, the average citizen doesn't even understand most of that. Like, corporations were invented. Well, actually, the first corporation was a Canadian thing. The Hudson's Bay Company was the first corporation.
Oh, is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah. But yeah, corporations have certain rules, but they're not there. They're there for a reason. It's because governments in the past recognized that you need to give some people a break and encourage them to take risks. If we had no corporations, nobody would ever set up a business, because every business would be privately owned. I have a business. I have a business called Plan B Engineering Solutions, and I have two choices when I set up my business. I can incorporate, or I can go as a sole proprietor. There's no way I'm going as a sole proprietor, because it's way too freaking risky. So there are laws that allow me to set up a corporation to encourage me to set up a business, and to I hire people. Why would you want to punish me? I hire people. Oh God. Now, yeah.
Because well, that's the MO of this government, is to punish people, and in lieu, or in light of their central planning. They want to. I mean, I keep going back to this central planning, but it is reminiscent of the Soviet era, where the government runs everything. They're the ones that are the arbiters of what business operates and what business doesn't operate. And that's
and in the Soviet era, you and I would have been driving a Lada. We had two choices of bread at the store. We had one choice of vodka, one choice of cigarettes, and there's zero innovation. Nobody went out of their way to invent a telephone or a better TV in the Soviet era. Actually, the video of who's that economist, that American economist? The video about the pencil. I always love that one. But anyways.
The iPencil.
iPencil.
There's so many iterations of it, but it was Milton Friedman that did a video on it.
Yes, Milton Friedman.
Been some really good essays about it, but it's basically the concept that nobody on the planet can put a pencil together for the price and the quality that it is, because it's this miracle of the free market, of all these different self-acting actors. Self-motivated actors doing all the things, like the paint, the brass,
the ferrule, the wood, the rubber
graphite,
eraser,
all of this stuff.
And the miracle is that also it's bringing people together to make the pencil, and the pencil starts out because it's fulfilling a need. Nobody had to say you should make a pencil. Somebody on their own said, "Hey, I should make a pencil because that guy is looking for something to write with," and he's constant. Yeah, exactly. Back to the budget, or back to the capital gains tax. It's actually, this is one of the ones that's derailing, right? The budget is still not approved because they still can't shove this one down. People, Jagmeet was asked. There's some great people are there. There's some bulking. I don't think every NDP vote guy is going to vote necessarily the party line. Even the Liberals, everybody's getting a lot of flack. This is one of those issues where their phones are ringing, and everyday Canadians are calling and saying, if you change this capital tax gain, or this, what is the profit tax, the capital gains tax, not the capital tax gains. If you change that, it's a deal breaker. And one of the really cool things that happened in the last couple of weeks is the parliamentary budget officer along these lines. Like he came out. I mean, he's the one. He's been asked about this. He's talking about this, and somehow or other topics came, and he's defending himself. Did you see the memo? He leaked a memo. Oh, man, you're good. You got.
I don't have the memo, but
okay.
But I do have Andrew Scheer tweeting this one out, and he says, Justin Trudeau imposed a gag order on the parliamentary budget officer, and now we know why. The documents prove the carbon tax will cost Canadians $30.5 billion. Have your say at, and they have the petition thing. But this is incredible to me. This whole concept of being able to even have a gag order on the parliamentary budget officer. The guy's job is to tell the people what the government's been doing with the budget.
He's not even
position.
He's not even appointed by the Liberals. He's not he's hired by the government, by the public service. He's just a senior bureaucrat whose job is to analyze the budgets and requests. And what was happening is they're trying to gag him on the, because he said it. He's like, this capital gains tax is a bad idea. He said it. He said it bluntly. This is a bad idea. So then they're trying to gag him on that. So then he's one of those senior bureaucrats that I was hoping would finally come to their senses and say enough is enough. And this man is a guy who's had 30-year career as a senior bureaucrat. He's near the end and he doesn't want to get thrown under the bus. So in an effort to fight back, he's showing some of the gag orders. I'm sure there's one, maybe they haven't had a chance to draft the one on the capital gains tax, but he's showing that he's being twisted, that he's being coerced, and good on him. Good on him. And so
good on him, because he's showing that the campaign promise of Trudeau's government to be more transparent was completely the opposite, and more along the lines of his campaign promise to admire China's basic dictatorship, because this is the kind of thing that you see in China, where they the bad news comes out and they squash it and they make it illegal to talk about it. You're not allowed to talk about what's going on. Even the guy who that's his job is to report to the people what's going on in this budget. And the amazing thing.
No, go ahead. But I got another hero this week, and God, I can't believe I'm going to talk about.
Well, the amazing thing is the government right now, or the Liberals, are trying to use this capital gains tax vote as a gotcha to try to go against Pierre Poilievre, who's a lot of people, middle class people, even liberal voters for the longest time are coming along and they're saying, this guy's speaking, he's talking sense. He's talking sense about what it is that I care about when this next election comes along. So the Liberals are using this as an opportunity to try to force them to vote against, obviously not the interest of the average Canadian, but trying to spin it to make it look like, oh, he's only saving his rich buddies, and it's backfiring on them so badly. It's not working out at all after they've just enriched so many people through the pandemic. It's just amazing.
Well, remember last week or 2 weeks ago when the Conservatives laughed at Trudeau because he unveiled the catalog? Like, he's in the House of Commons and I got a catalog, and then like that backfired and they're all laughing at him. Yeah. He had one of those moments today. He basically said, Trudeau or Pierre is only interested in defending workers or whatever, and it completely backfired on him. It's
he's only interested in defending work. Okay, well, let's
you.
defend those
that.
workers.
If that's an insult, I'll take it. So
well, and this is something that the Trudeau government's not defending is even the government workers. And we saw that recently with a YouTube channel I'm quite friendly with. They got thrown under the bus. Well, at least Cypher of the Northern Perspective YouTube channel. Now, they put out a video recently talking about this, where Cypher and Fox are the two people involved in the channel. Let me pop this up here. And they did a face reveal, after Cypher, whose name is Ryan. It says Ryan and Tanya. After their face reveal, he got fired because of what he'd been doing with this YouTube channel. They found out they had a particular way of getting that information. I thought that was kind of skeevy. So this channel has been instrumental in showcasing what's the corruption that's been happening around, especially around the ArriveCan scandal in Canada. And
Oh, you're back. I
think we
lost you
paused
for
there
a
for a
minute there,
second.
but you're back.
Oh, there we go. So yeah, they've been instrumental in this corruption. A lot of these corruption scandals that have been happening. And as you know, Ryan was a government worker. I'm not sure what bureaucracy. I don't want to pry or whatever. This is personal information. We'll learn more about it as it goes along. But there was a campaign, or not a campaign, but an initiative to get government workers to disclose any money they've been making on the side. And in this, which I don't think they have any right to do. I don't think if you're making money on the side, unless it's a conflict of interest.
If it's a conflict of interest, yeah. That's, you know, whether it's the government or the private sector, I mean, it's a reasonable assertion to ask, you know, are you profiting from something? But anyways,
Right, like I'm a mechanic, and I'm not.
Yeah,
if I was doing, side jobs, that would be a questionable practice. But me working as a YouTuber on the side is not a questionable practice. It has nothing to do with what I do for a living, and it doesn't directly compete with it. So there's no like non-compete issue. But to say that you have to divulge what you do on the side, I think is a bit of a overstep. And then use that once it was found out who he was, then give the ultimatum of you have to stop doing that or you can't work here any longer, despite a good reputation and a good performance record, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think this was an overstep on the government to try to, in my opinion, weed out someone else who's speaking the truth and punish. It's along the lines of cancel culture, this whole event.
No, I don't disagree. I mean, it's an overstep. It's a coercion, but in all fairness, millions of us have been punished that way in the last 4 years. I mean, I lost my job, not in the exact same way, but, I refused to comply with certain mandates and therefore I became unemployable. So they're victim of something that's happened to a lot of us. And I to be honest, I have to digest this one a little bit because it caught me off guard. It caught me off guard. And I have to digest this one. I'm not 100% sympathetic. I'm not 100% sympathetic because there's a lot of us that have had the shit kicked out of us in the last few years for so if he just wants to say he's doing the right thing, yes, he's doing the right thing. I absolutely agree, you're doing the right thing, but I think
that's his position on that.
And I don't know, and
in my opinion,
don't want to distract from his good work. They've done fantastic work, but they're not martyrs. In my opinion, they're not martyrs. There's, I
don't know if I was going down that route with the martyrs thing. I think anyone
weren't going down that route, but I did see some people go, oh my God, they're heroes and whatnot. I'm like, no, they're not martyrs. Let's leave it at that one. I'm not 100%.
Well, yeah. So in my opinion, it is kind of the, what happens when you choose anonymity. So anonymity, usually people choose that because there's a consequence that could happen. And in this case, this was the consequence that could happen. And when that anonymity was lifted, then that's exactly what went down.
Yeah, and I wonder if somebody
really
didn't squeal on him.
It really sucks.
I wonder if somebody didn't squeal on him, or actually, you know what? I'll tell you what. I mean, it's quite possible that quite honestly, the government's spying on us. The government's spying on us right now. Like yesterday, when we were doing, and I'm sure people listened to them and figured out they can use voice recognition. They quite honestly probably became targets of something, and that's despicable. I mean, that I want to talk. That I'll talk about that all day long. I was on a conference call the other day with Keith Wilson, lawyer, Eva Chipia, Keith, those guys.
Yeah, lawyer who he was one of the only lawyers to go out and represent the people of the Freedom Convoy when it was happening. And a lot of guts that guy has.
Yeah, and then in our discussion, we were talking about let me humor me for a second. So we're talking about suing government officials, right? So there's a lot of that going on right now. I mean, me and Eva one day spent a funny afternoon trying to serve papers to an MLA in Edmonton. It's very hard to sue government officials. And Keith was explaining to us that they have these huge protections, like government employees. Once an elected politicians can almost do, it's almost impossible to prove that they're acting negligently. That's how much protection they're afforded to do their job. But anyways, and in talking, he kept using the example, it's like they're wearing 3 bulletproof vests. And even if you get through one bulletproof vest, you have to get through the other one. And then Keith was hilarious because he kept saying, oh, and by the way, CSIS, I'm using this as an anecdote. I'm not actually talking about shooting politicians. But he kept talking like that because he's 100% aware that we're being listened to, right? It's hilarious. And then so that happened to Cypher and Fox, almost guaranteed, right? It's happening to us. It happened yesterday. I'll say this again. I was at a conference yesterday, that injection of truth. And at one point I turned to one of the organizers. I'm like, ooh, right now, you know, I said they're preaching to the converted, but they're getting a little bit hyperbolic, and now it's giving great sound bites to the opposition. And then the naive guy said, "What do you mean to the opposition?" I'm like, dude, you don't think there isn't like NDP voters in here? I do it to them. You don't think there isn't somebody from the police or one of the cops or something? I mean, look at what happened at
every
Coots,
time,
right? Like the Coots, the whole Coots trial is finally underway, and we're learning about all these undercover cops that were
oh yeah,
framing them, as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, that's probably what happened to Cyber.
Well, females that were having love interests with the accused.
Yeah. So you don't think
unbelievable?
Yeah, so they're trying to censor
like that's
us?
Entrapment if that's the case. What?
It's totally entrapment. And then so are they listening to us? Hi, CSIS. I know you're listening to us. I love Trudeau.
Absolutely,
I think
they are.
that,
and
yeah,
I actually
yeah.
like I live my life even when I'm in like private conversations and other things online. Is I always live my life with the concept of somebody's gonna take this and use it against you. So just assume you're being recorded. Just always assume you're being recorded. Because
there was an expression. One of my PR guys told me that one time. Like, just everything you say, imagine what it would look like as the headline of a newspaper. I'm like, ooh, okay, you got to be careful. Yeah, you have to be careful. But then we're nobodies.
Absolutely. Absolutely have to be. careful.
No, the other. I was trying to get it to the other story I was trying to get to. The other senior bureaucrat that, in my opinion, did good this week, and I don't know if he needed to or wanted to, but I've been hounding the RCMP for that damn RCMP's annual firearms report. And to me, it was looking like they were dragging their feet hard on that one because it's, we're in 2024 and the last report was the 2021. And every month I'd ask about it. Well, it came out. The 2022 report came out. It's under, the picture is in the front cover is the new RCMP commissioner, Duham. And I read the report and I did a great analysis of it. And I think the report is well written, and the report is not damning, but it is damning. I mean, all the report, he uses beautiful language throughout the report. They use language that basically says Canadian law or Canadian firearm owners are extremely law abiding. That's like the conclusion of the report. Like whatever law the Liberals have passed, Canadian firearm owners jump through the hoops, comply with the laws. And that's it. There's no issues. There's nothing negative to report. I mean, I think that, of the 450,000 applications for firearms, they rejected 863 and probably all for valid reasons. Somebody didn't pass a reference check, but and otherwise the number of firearms in this country keeps growing. We're up to 14.4 million firearms owned in this country. We own 37 firearms per 100 people. So puts us right up there, like 8th in the world in terms of firearm ownership. And we're at the bottom of the list in terms of crime. So gun ownership and crime are inversely proportionate in this country. Guns are not a problem, folks. Not a problem. And definitely
where do you see less guns in the hands of law-abiding citizens? Probably in the cities. And you see a lot more guns in the hands of criminals in the cities. You see a lot more crime.
In fact, the Americans people always quote the Americans as a very violent nation. It's like, on an aggregate, it's more violent than we are. But when you zoom in, same as in Canada, when you zoom in to and do the correlation between severe crime and gun ownership, there's no correlation. I mean, Texas has way more guns than anywhere else, and it's way safer than, say, Illinois. And Illinois is like an extremely violent state. Chicago is extremely violent, and it has a huge gun ban. So, yeah, they're that was the one. Hey, what else are we going to talk about? I'm looking at the time here, but let me do a quick thing. Let me sneak.
Oh, you had another topic.
4-3 Florida, and there's 5. It's 4-3 Florida, and there's 5 minutes left in this game. Sorry, folks. We still have a few items on the topic, but we're going to call it quits, man.
Absolutely. If you want to see us talk about more things like this, come to the event. Come to the event this coming weekend. Unfortunately, most of the events, our segment of the event is sold out. So if you don't have your tickets already, you can get virtual tickets. So go check out the website. I'll pop this up again one more time so everybody can see this. But yeah, go check out the website. This is We Unify, the Reclaiming Canada Conference, June 21st through 23rd. That's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And Sunday's all day too. It looks like I thought it was going to be a half day on Sunday, but no, it's going to be a full day.
When are you getting there? You're getting there Friday, or you'll be there a little bit earlier?
I'll be there Friday. I'm leaving super early in the morning, but I got to take the commie boat over. I call the British Columbia ferries. That's the commie boat. So okay. I'll be over.
And we don't get to
roll into Nanaimo, and then I got to drive.
Yeah, so I'll see you on Friday night. I land around 2-ish, 3-ish, and I think the first event's at 5 o'clock for us. So I'll see you there at 5 o'clock on Friday. And
I'll see you there at like 5. Yeah, that's
we'll have some cervezas, but I'm only staying till Sunday. After the conference, I'm jumping on the red eye and coming back home. I got my daughter moves into a new apartment. Dad's got I got 1,000 square feet of floor in my garage that I gotta install for. I'm a good dad.
Fair enough. Got work to do. It's a thing, but yeah, hopefully we'll see everybody in the virtual thing. There won't be a live stream on Friday like I normally have on the channel because of this event, but you can check out what's happening live at the event. Cheap prices for the live, the virtual tickets. So go sign up, get yourself in there, and hope to see you in there.
We'll have lots to talk about at this show next week. Right? We'll debrief the whole conference for everybody when we come back next week.
Absolutely, Marty. Where can people find you?
Marty Up North on Twitter. I'm on YouTube too, but look me up on Twitter. Marty Up North on Twitter. Unacceptable fact checker. Cheers, everyone.
Sounds good.